Hello, I'm Professor Peter Hines of leanbusinesssystem.com, and I'd like to welcome you to this 8th in the video series, and today we'll be having a look at strategy deployment and the practice. So we'll be having a look at a case study of Vale's Clydach plant in Wales in the UK, and later on I'll introduce the General Manager and we'll have a look at how they've been applying this area of lean into their organisation. But just to connect you back to what we're doing in the other videos, we've been working through the lean business system, and as you see, the strategy deployment area is just one of 5 important areas. Just a quick connection is what we're trying to look at in the strategy deployment is that we're all going in the same direction in the organisation rather than everyone going in a slightly different way. So hence we have to have a strategy, we have to be able to deploy it, agree it at the senior management team and align that down to every single person in the organisation. So strategic direction, alignment and engagement, and an management process to actually make that work. So we'll be focusing on how this works in a real organisation. So as you can see, at the top level, we have some sort of picture about what is the strategy, what are we trying to achieve, what are the key measures and direction, etc. And what are the number of projects that need to be done at the top of the organisation and as we deploy down to more local levels in an organisation. So hence, this could be 2 or even 3 levels depending on the size of the organisation. So now I'd like to introduce Mike Cox, who's the General Manager at Vale's site in Clydach in South Wales. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Peter.
So, you know, most of the companies I go and visit and talk to about lean tend to be sort of automotive and aerospace and industries like that. So what challenges does taking this sort of lean continuous improvement approach into a sort of process industry, what sort of problems and issues does that raise for you?
I guess lean or continuous improvement is something that you wouldn't associate with this kind of heavy industry, if that's what we want to call it. But I think that there really is a place for the application of these tools and the implementation of a culture such as this in all industry.
Right, and the site here is presumably quite an old traditional site and been here many decades.
It's over 100 years, yes.
Okay, and presumably has hundreds of people here, or?
Not hundreds anymore, 200 plus, but maybe in days gone by 20, 30 years ago, there would have been upwards of 1,000, yeah.
Right. So why did you decide to go down this sort of lean continuous improvement route?
Well, I think that in today's day and age, we can't stand still. I mean, all organisations have got to move forward and make themselves better and more competitive. So I think that there was a pretty persuasive reason just based on that alone. I think also customer expectations are higher and higher, get higher and higher. And really there is a need for us to understand what customers want, and we need to be responsive to them as well. I think that's been reflected in what we've done over the last 2 or 3 years.
You actually call your lean program here continuous improvement. Why did you choose to use that terminology?
I think lean may be an overused term, and I think continuous improvement resonated more with the workforce. We discovered as we went down this road, and it really reflected what we were trying to do a lot better than using a word lean which didn't really have a meaning. And
I guess built on some of the past work that you'd already started.
That's right, yes. I mean, we've always kind of referred to, whether it's project-based or incremental improvements as continuous improvement anyway, yeah.
So I suppose that there wasn't actually a point when you started, but was there sort of a ramp-up point where it really took off?
Yeah, that's right. I think that, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've developed a focus on continuous improvement. But really over the last two years or so, it's really taken off, with the development of an implementation roadmap. And we've developed a lot more traction along the way.
So Mike, you mentioned the lean roadmap that you developed. Tell me a bit about how you went about doing that.
Well, I guess first of all, it was myself and the management team at the onset of, the strategic deployment of continuous improvement here at Clydach. We went through the lean maturity assessment understanding the key strategic drivers for lean implementation or continuous improvement implementation. And I guess at that point, we at least could draw a line in the sand based on that maturity assessment to understand exactly where we were, say, 2 years ago.
Yes. Were you where you thought you were, or was that a surprise?
We didn't really know, but I guess, yes, I think that the management team's here, conclusion was pretty well in line with your guys. We were very much in sort of early stages of deployment, but at the same time, it allowed us to provide a target for 18 months down the road and 3 years down the road of where we wanted to be, getting towards autonomous full deployment of continuous improvement.
So in a way, it was a bit like doing value stream mapping at a process level with a current state and a future state.
That's right,
and plotting yourself a course.
That's right.
Okay.
It was very important up front, I think, to do that.
So in terms of the approach you've taken, it's not just a sort of tools, a bit of 5S here and a bit of pull here and so forth. It's a bit more of a holistic approach.
Yeah, I think the skills training for 5S, etc., is obviously important, but we're not simply deploying the lean tools blindly across the site. We are deploying them where they'll add value.
Right. Okay. And I see from the picture on the wall that that you've made a sort of map of where all the different tools are, and I can see that, you know, TPM's being used here or 5S here or whatever, but tools where you actually need them.
Yeah, it's good for the employees to see that, I think, and it's situated in a reception area so everybody who walks through there can see it. But at the same time, it's a good reminder to everybody where the activities are taking place, and and it tells a story actually, because you'll see that we're debottlenecking, we're using the appropriate tools around the refinery where we're trying to debottleneck, and so on and so forth. So there's a reason to it as well.
Right, and I guess it's useful to show customers that you are a continual improvement site.
It is. This isn't really about sort of showing to customers, though. This is really about keeping the engagement of our employees up.
When you started the activity, what were you actually trying to achieve? What were the key objectives?
I think at the highest level, we were trying to communicate a sense of purpose to the workforce, and for people to understand why it was so critical for us to not only train people on continuous improvement tools and techniques, but also to really implement a continuous improvement culture here. I think that was very important up front.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because a lot of sites I go into in a lean approach, you've often got a small team doing lean stuff, like a lean coach or a lean black belt and a few management, but you don't often get a sense that it's really anything to do with the employees. So I suppose you were trying to overcome some of those issues.
Yeah, I think it's also, that's completely true. I think on top of that, I think putting an organisation in place that allow deployment of this message down to all levels of the organisation, with people clearly at all levels feeling as if they had a role to play. I think that was important as well.
In terms of the activity in the first roadmap, what would you pick out as the 2 or 3 most important activities that you undertook?
I think the development of a clear message as to why we're doing this. Strategic deployment was very important. And under that, I think the training of the appropriate people throughout the organisation was essential before we could even really start down this route.
Right, so the alignment, engagement of people, and having some sort of process to hang the activity around. In terms of the strategy deployment activity, how did you go about doing that?
Well, we use the yellow board approach, which this is the refinery level yellow board, if you like.
So this would be the management.
That's right.
Level,
the management team for the refinery would actually use this yellow board every week as a sort of focal point for our weekly meetings, and it really speaks to the strategic direction that the refinery is going in, and the KPIs that underpin that.
Right, so I noticed that you've got a sort of Gantt chart picture of projects that are ongoing at the business level.
Yes.
It's very pleasingly looking quite green at the moment.
Yes.
So most things are...
I'd like to think so anyway.
Okay, very good. And the KPIs, they would link back to what was critical for the organisation in terms of what you were trying to achieve.
That's right. We did a lot of work in identifying what the critical success factors were. And from that, it allowed us to derive the KPIs for the refinery.
So that wouldn't just be sort of operational things, it'd be a wider set than that.
Across the board, really, yeah.
So
all elements of the business.
Customer relations,
that's right.
And suppliers and people.
That's right,
okay,
yeah.
Right. I see you've got some pictures of some of the activity of some of the training and escalation issues. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, our yellow board process there's a sort of hierarchy of yellow boards, and you know, issues that can't be managed or need assistance from a higher level within the organisation, they get escalated up to from one yellow board to the other, effectively. So this is something that's been escalated from, if you like, plant level,
right.
And now it's been escalated to the refinery level yellow board for us to assist as well, really. Yeah.
So there's something rather similar to this in several areas across the.
That's
the
right. We've got I think it's 15 of these yellow boards strategically deployed around the site. Yeah.
So that means that there's sort of one for every sort of about 15 people in the organisation, or the natural work teams.
As a rule of thumb, yeah, that's a good number. Yeah.
Right. So at this level, you meet once a week. What about at the lower level?
Well, it depends. At shift level, the guys will meet on a shift-by-shift basis.
Okay. Maybe we could go and have a look at the lower level and see what they look like.
Sure.
Well, my name's Damien Boucher, and I'm the production coordinator in the kiln plant. My main roles are improving process quality control and being responsible for any continuous improvement project work we've got on in the area.
And I believe you were one of the first areas as a business to start using the yellow board process. Is that right?
Yes, and since it's begun, it's turned out to be quite successful in identifying small problems or large problems with our process. And it's easily identifiable, and we can quickly resolve them.
Right. So maybe you could talk me through sort of the different elements you have on the whiteboard.
Okay. Well, here we got on our future, which is the kiln plant purpose statement, and then we've got the kiln plant critical success factors and why we are implementing continuous improvement in the kiln plant. Here then we've got all the project works which are going on in the kiln plant at the moment, and we have a weekly meeting where we go through each of the projects to update this chart to find out how far along, what hold-ups we're getting or any issues, to keep on top of it, really. The charts behind me here are our key performance indicators, where if we keep everything within the green zone of the charts, we pretty much know that the whole process is stable and it's in control. And any deviation out of the green section, well, then it's easily highlighted, and well, we can address the problems very, very quickly. As in, before we had this board here, we may only address a problem if we notice it like at the end of the shift, but by keeping plotting these graphs every hour or every 2 hours, we're always on top of it to maintain inside that green zone.
So if I sort of summarise that, the first part is more about linking into what's your contribution to making the business successful, and the detailed measures is more about making sure that the process is working well in the kiln area.
That's exactly right. Before we introduced the yellow board, a team of various people through the refinery in different sections, we sat down and had meetings to decide what were our key performance indicators, and then once we came up with, well, there's 8 of them here. Once we put those on the board and started charting them, in no time at all we started seeing small improvements, continuous improvements.
Okay, so the measures in itself help you identify problems that you need to resolve, but also I think you have a continuous improvement suggestion system working as well.
Yes, we've got what's called a PFU. It's a problem follow-up, that's what that stands for. And we introduced standardised work into the kiln plant going back 2 years or so ago, where all our critical tasks, what we found is that certain personnel on certain different shifts were doing that particular task slightly differently. And if certain of those tasks are carried out incorrectly, you could have massive downtime because of that. So after identifying what our key tasks were, I would go around then and monitor each person who carries out that task, and then you come up then with a final draft of best, safest procedure. and everybody buys off on that because we can all see and agree that that is the most efficient and safest way to do it, and everybody then carries it out in that manner. So the purpose of a PFU is that if they carry out a certain procedure which should normally take 10 minutes, if for whatever reason it's taking 20 minutes, then it's automatically highlighted something has gone wrong there, and then the idea is to raise a PFU to highlight what went wrong and to make a suggestion to put something in place which would permanently prevent that from happening again. Since that worked very well, but since then we've now broadened the scope of the PFU system to, rather than just standardised work procedures, to all general work. So anybody can put a suggestion now of an improvement to any part of the process, and we look to implement it as soon as possible.
Okay, so I can see that lots of ideas are generated by yourself and the team in the area. Presumably some of those you can easily do yourselves, but some others, what happens if it's a difficult thing or it needs a wider sense someone else in the business? How do you get other people involved?
Well, we have some PFUs sometimes which we can do in the same shift. You know, someone will make a suggestion and it'll be just a case of altering one of the process parameters, and yeah, you think, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Why didn't we think of it before? And then we'll just make that adjustment. So it'll be created in the morning, and by the afternoon, it'll be signed off as complete. Other ones then, some of them are to make modifications to pipework or vessels, which, due to the nature of our process, we can't easily do that until we're in a shutdown situation where we've purged equipment out, isolated it, and then we can actually get inside to do maintenance. So PFUs which are, say, for like, we put them into a folder for shutdown work. So they'll still be kept open, and then as soon as we get the shutdown, we've got a list of all the work that is required to do for PFUs.
So some projects you can do very quickly, some projects perhaps the same team can do but needs to be in a shutdown, and maybe other projects need to be escalated to the management or a wider engineering team, or someone else needs to get involved.
Yes, that's exactly right, depending on the size of the suggestion. Like a lot of if it's a modification to plant or pipework, obviously we have to go through a process. We can't just change pipework. So the engineering team will be involved, the electrical crew will be involved, safety will be involved, to obviously discuss these changes and how viable they are, how cost effective they are. So after that process has been done and it's passed off, and we carry out that work during the shutdown then.
Yes, good. And what sort of changes has this yellow board process meant for you and the team?
Well, basically, people are talking about exactly the correct things that they need to be talking about during a morning meeting. Like we hold a shiftly morning meeting based around this yellow board at the start of a day shift, 12-hour shift and a night shift. And all the team members are involved, standing here, and they go through each of these KPIs and look back on the previous 24 hours or whatever time period to see what issues they had.
Sure.
To see if we're still keeping within the control band.
Okay.
So it focuses everyone's attention on what you need to be talking about, because quite often before the yellow board was introduced, we found that we were having meetings, but the focus would get directed somewhere else onto a subject which was not important, but
not the most important.
Not the most important, and we've identified that these are our most important issues. So if we focus our meeting about that, we're all talking about the same thing, and it highlights any small problems that we have that we can deal with quickly and get us back into the control zone.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Hey, this is warehousing and packaging department. I'm Steve Warford, and I'm the superintendent of the area. So I'm responsible for the running of all packing machines, all the processes for sieving the products, and the final packaging, really.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see you're, like the other areas we visited in the business, using the yellow board activity to focus activity and what you need to do and so forth. I wonder if, could you tell me a little bit about how you sort of focused on your future in terms of what you do in this area of the business?
Okay, yeah, first of all, we put together a purpose statement, and out of the purpose statement, we looked at where we want to focus on, which is continuous improvement, and then where the critical success will be coming out of that, really.
So what are the sort of things that are critical in the shipping area?
Critical would be involvement in the warehouse personnel in continuous improvement. So we're continuing to improve all the processes and looking at safety and how we can improve that, and quality. And it's getting all engagement of the full team.
Right. Okay. And then I see, like in the other yellow boards that we've seen across the business, you have a number of projects coming out of this, larger projects and key performance indicators and so forth.
It's basically a storyboard where I can go through everything the PFUs the boys have raised, where we are with them, like if there's any customer complaints or anything arising from that. It's just a discussion every Thursday.
Right.
Which we get input from them and us, and the best outcome, really.
Okay, very good. So maybe we could pick up on one or two of the improvements that you do. Maybe some of the TPM activity.
Yep.
So perhaps we could go and have a look at that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, TPM, we set it up on 3 critical bits of equipment, which is the sieving machines and the 10 kilo packing line. Basically, we take it out for 1 shift per week, where we do TPM on the machine. So the operators will change all the elements, check all the oil levels, check all the oil, any oil leaks, and then one specific part of the machine will be cleaned down, and then because it's a big machine, so we'll pick one part each week and we'll focus on that, really. Same with and we came up with a simple check sheets where we just tick off whether it's in good condition or needs changing. So it's basic stuff, but it's makes a difference, big difference.
Very good, and that fits in with the other areas like 5S and problem follow-up that you're using, and the safety in the area as well.
Yeah, it all comes together, really.
So you're using sort of the appropriate set of tools and techniques to achieve what you need against the yellow board projects and targets and so forth.
Exactly, everything fits together.
Mike, what would you say are the tangible benefits you've got out of the CI activity over the last couple of years?
I think we've seen a significant improvement in process control over the last couple of years, and also the number of customer complaints has reduced significantly as well.
Right.
I think we can attribute that significantly to the work that we've done over the last couple of years.
Okay. And what about intangible benefits?
Certainly seen a lot more engagement and a sense of ownership from all our people. I think that's the main intangible benefit.
Yeah, I was interested in the yellow board process that you talked about and we've seen examples of. At the face of it, it looks to be about sort of numbers and projects and very hard tools and techniques, but it seems to me it's more about engagement and alignment and getting people to want to do improvement.
That's right. All our people contribute to yellow board meetings, and I think the important thing is that everybody feels as if they're empowered and able to contribute now. I think that the yellow board has provided that vehicle for all our people. So that's really contributed to the engagement piece.
So it's the process sitting behind it. It's the meetings, it's the ideas people had, it's the thinking. It's not just numbers.
No, I think the biggest benefit has been the number of improvement ideas that have been generated through this process. And there have been hundreds of ideas over the last couple of years that have been implemented directly as a result of this work. So it's had to have had a positive impact on the refinery overall.
Because on the face of it, the boards look like it's a sort of top-down management process, but in reality, I think what you're saying is it's a top-down aligning people to the goals of the organisation, but really a bottom-up get people's ideas of how they can contribute.
That's right, and the real value is from the bottom-up contribution.
In terms of behavioural changes, what are the sort of things you've noticed in the business?
Well, I think around the refinery there's been throughout the site a lot more ownership taken around yellow boards. People feel, as I said earlier, empowered to contribute to those meetings, and therefore they take on a lot more of the problem solving themselves, and overall the whole process has allowed a lot more people to kind of show their leadership qualities maybe than they were ever able to do before.
Right, so it's giving them some space to control their own destinies and work out how they...
Yeah, and express themselves. And I think it's a lot more fun coming to work when you can express yourself and feel as if what you're saying and doing is being heard and seen.
Sure. So I suppose this is a key step in making the approach sustainable in the business.
That's right. I think that if it was purely tools based and heavily sort of management driven, I don't think these things survive longer than a year or two. I think that hopefully, anyway, I mean, only 2 years into this process, hopefully this will allow for a sort of long-term sustainability of this continuous improvement culture here. Yeah.
What have been the main learnings for you personally, Mike, over the journey?
I think there's been a lot of lessons to be learned along the way. I think with regards to implementation, I think it can be quite difficult to ensure that the levels of engagement throughout the organisation are maintained at all times. And I think we certainly learned that there's a need to keep a particular focus on that. At the same time, I don't think that's been a significant issue for us, but it's certainly something that maybe I didn't understand as being as big a thing at the outset of this as what it turned out to be. So sure. I don't think we did a bad job of it, but I just think that it was something that was quite interesting to... There's a lot of obviously managerial energy involved in sustaining this culture, and you cannot step away from it for any time. It's got to be a consistent message and the same level of visible commitment from management at all times, really. Yes,
I mean, I always see the sort of CI and lean journey is about purpose, process and people. And actually, as you've described in the yellow board process, the purpose, getting that down was very important, looking at the processes and improving it.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a lot of what you're talking about is this people one. You keep coming back to engagement and alignment and actually getting people on board as a key driver for you.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, we as I said, we have quite a large number of employees here, and getting them all to feel as if they can contribute and be able to contribute. That's a very powerful thing for us, and it shouldn't be up to a handful of people to be driving the organisation forward.
Sure. So what are the next steps? I mean, I suppose you're at the end of the first roadmap and sort of entering into the second roadmap.
Well, we're at the end of the first roadmap, but I guess this thing doesn't ever end. It's really taking stock of where we are and setting a course for the next 18 months and putting the critical activities together to ensure that we can fully deploy this culture to the point that we're eventually fully autonomous